Ashley, from your perspective as a woman who's an architect working in a firm, and then there are women or men who also own their own firms, like Damian here, that glass ceiling, is it all about whether one thinks that a woman can do a certain type of design, or is it also about the salary? Are women paid differently?
Women are paid differently. I think the gap is closing, but I believe it's now more of what they're calling a glass cliff than a glass ceiling. So we've broken the ceiling, but now we're on this cliff, and we're kind of trying to make it up to the point where we're acknowledged as contributors to the industry, but there's a pay difference. There's still a huge lack of women in CEO roles, in principal roles, in firms. I think some of the larger firms are starting to take notice, and they are starting to really push and acknowledge that. And it's not just women too; it's minorities. It's kind of this old cliche of the old white guys club. You know, and you kind of hate to say it, but it's there.
But don't you want the best designer?
You do,
Yeah.
and so it's a balance. It's really hard because you have to strike a balance between the fact that really, regardless of race, gender, class, you do want the best design.
Well, especially in your profession.
Absolutely.
Because now it's up, it's erected, it's there, and it's for all to see. It's got to be the best design, right? So who cares about the rest? So why, I don't understand why that exists then, if it's about the creative process and the design that comes out
Well,
of
I
it.
think one of our challenges is at the architecture school level, and that's what things like the Michigan Architectural Foundation is setting about doing, is trying to, by raising awareness of design, the schools themselves, if you look at their intakes, there is an imbalance there. So it's also an interest or a career selection or choice that we need to raise more awareness about the design and the impact of design, because the schools are definitely, the intakes reflect a much greater male intake in comparison to female and to minorities. So there's an issue there as well. So
do you have to
and there's a retention too. I mean, there's an issue of retention, because you may get, and I think that's where the industry has a responsibility to step in and say, you know, enough is enough, is that we can get the women and the minorities in at the freshman level, and we can get them into the school, but then if they drop out in a year or two, or if they don't finish, you know, we haven't met our goal. We haven't created any sort of impact. So I think the industry really needs to step in at the school level, and even before they get to college, step in at the grade school level and start talking to students and start talking to children about what design is, what architecture is, where they can go with it, how they can do it, and encouraging and mentoring the creative process, so that these women and these minorities have a support system, so that when they get into architecture school, and it's no picnic. You can agree. It's not easy, but if you have a strong support system, then these women can get through school and they can graduate and they become architects and designers. And then
interesting you brought that up, because at least when I grew up in the 70s, I don't recall anyone who was an architect coming to talk to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every other profession I can think of, but not an architect.
No, that's true. And I mean, you know, we talked last week about the MAF, Michigan Architectural Foundation, where we've started these 2 curriculum programs now. There's Architracks, which is the one that runs on public television in Detroit, that's really aimed at very young children. And then there's the curriculum for middle school as well. These are the kinds of things that we need to continue to support to start people's interest early in any design profession. Yes, these are put together by the Architectural Foundation specifically, but they really are about design in general and raising people's awareness of design. So whether it's product design, whether it's graphic design, anything, it's intended to spur interest in that and create interest.
So Ashley, how did you get into it?
How did I get into design?
Yes.
I had a really amazing great aunt who lived in Detroit for about, I think from the 20s until the early 90s. Rode the bus, you know, the whole deal. She was fantastic. And she gave me Lincoln Logs, which were actually created by Frank Lloyd Wright's son. Which not many people know, but
Frank Lloyd Wright's son created
Lincoln Logs.
I never had heard that.
I confess I didn't know that.
Yeah, he invented them, and she gave me a set of Lincoln Logs when I was really small, and I loved to play with them. I loved to kind of try and create. And the Lincoln Log, it really challenges the creativity, because it's a very straight, you know, it's a straight angular thing, and so trying to create different shapes, I was always just trying to figure out how I could make things work. I was trying to cantilever things off so things are hanging off edges, and the roof's all crooked, and so she really encouraged me. And I think I have a strong female leadership in my family. My two great aunts were fantastic leaders. My grandmothers, my mother, and they all encouraged me that I could really just do anything that I wanted to do if I worked hard enough and if I wanted it bad enough, more than anything.
I see a big run on Lincoln Logs now for little girls out there.
I hope so. Everybody should go buy their little girl Lincoln Logs. But I had a strong system of support, and I had a strong, leadership in my life, and that really encouraged me. I started working for an architect when I was in high school through a connection with my drafting teacher, and he was an extremely strong supporter of women in architecture and of architectural history, and he took me everywhere to see all this amazing architecture across the country. And then I got into school, and I just was lucky, I think, to have found mentors, both male and female, who really pushed me to excel and supported me in whatever I wanted to do.
And where did you go to school?
I went to the University of Detroit Mercy, and graduated in 2000, I'm sorry, 2004. Wow. Okay.
But who's counting?
Who's counting, really? And I had some amazing professors there that I still am in contact with. I'm involved in the Alumni Association, and so I feel like because I had such great opportunities in my life and in my career, I want to give back to...
Well, and doing that in a very great way through this organization, the Beverly Willis Architecture Foundation. If people would like more information about the foundation, they can go online to bwaf.org.
Correct.
bwaf.org. And as to the documentary that you have here, where can people see that?
They can actually purchase it from the Beverly Willis Architectural Foundation, and I don't believe it's streamed anywhere right now, but I do know that they are working on trying to get it into a wider audience. If they can also contact their local library or their local design school or architecture organization, and they do offer educational copies of it to libraries and to schools. So if there's an interest, tell your library, tell your school, I want to see this documentary, have them get it for you.
And again, you go to bwaf.org and learn more about women's contribution to the built environment, the Beverly Willis Architecture Foundation. What projects are you working on right now, Ashley, with your work with Smith Group JJR?
I'm working on a couple really interesting projects, actually. I'm working on a new emergency department and ICU for the DMC Sinai Grace Hospital in Detroit.
A lot of construction going on with the
a lot,
DMC.
Yes.
Good.
Yep, so we're doing a great addition to the building and some renovations within that's really going to expand and really bring their emergency department up to the latest technology. It's going to be beautiful. I'm also working on a project with Michigan State University, the Facility for Rare Isotope Beams, which you may have heard about in the news. It's getting some funding from the Department of Energy, and it's a huge, it's really going to be a game changer. It's going to make Michigan State one of the top, if not the top, nuclear physics schools in the world. When this comes, and it's going to create jobs for Michigan. It's a win-win project for everybody. And then I'm also working on some other smaller projects for the GSA.
Wonderful. It's great having you on, Damian, on Design
Yeah,
today.
so much.
Great example of a
absolutely.
woman in architecture and design. And
and raising awareness of design.
Yeah,
I think
that's right.
So thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ashley Flintoff from Smith Group JJR and a member of the Beverly Willis Architecture Foundation. Again, that is bwaf.org, and Damian Farrell Design Group. I have one last question for you.
Yes.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh dear.
Do women design differently than men, Damian?
No. Emphatically no. I think everyone that I have worked with over the years, everyone has their own approach and their own...
It gets back to what we were talking about.
Absolutely.
You have that skill set in order to be able to design.
It is a skill set. I don't think you could, I certainly couldn't look at either a sketch or drawing, anything like that, or a design, and know.
Yeah, very good point.
I think everyone has different touches, different feelings about their architecture.
Well put.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Damian Farrell from Damian Farrell Design Group, and you can go online to DFDG. Did I get the right name?
DFDGonline.com.
DFDGonline.com, and follow him on Facebook as well. You're listening to Damian on Design every Saturday on the Lucy Ann Lance Show on Ann Arbor's talk station, 1290 WLBY.